What is up, everyone? Happy Friday evening. I am one of your co-hosts, Mike Breer. This is Across the Pitch. To my left or my right, depends on how you look at it, is my buddy Dave Miller. Dave, how you doing tonight?
Yo. I'm doing right. Obviously, it's late over here, but with power on, we always look forward to this time of the week. So, obviously, it's great to be back live. Obviously, we had a couple of weeks off, and now we're looking forward to getting straight back into another what has been a really busy week of union action.
Yes, the whole month of May. So we did an episode like a month ago for the May Gauntlet. The May Gauntlet has been for us too. I had my whole family had
Yeah.
COVID. Dave, I know you've been busy with the gills and everything else with the work. So we're finally getting back here. What feels like forever, but it's only been about 2 weeks now. So, to your point though, it's been freaking chaotic, and the Union have finally made it through the month of May, through that May Gauntlet, undefeated in regular season play. I know they lost in the Open Cup. Um, before we jump into the whole agenda, we have a busy agenda tonight. Just one quick thought, Dave, before we get into how do you think the month of May went for the Union this past 30 days?
Um, I think all things considered, I think if you'd have probably said, look, they'll be top of the Eastern Conference, they'll be in the running for the Supporters Shield. I think everyone would have probably snapped your hands off for it. I think the way that things sort of panned out in terms of drawing like 5 games in a row or something ridiculous like that, I
Yeah.
think was probably not the most ideal scenario, especially considering some of the games, late goal against Nashville, late goal against LAFC, again a late-ish goal against the Red Bulls, upper man, failing to take advantage against a poor Winter Miami team. But then you go on the road in Portland and sort of play them off the park for 70 minutes and get a 2-0 win. It sort of, it allows the team to, pushes the team in a good direction. Now, obviously, they travel to New England tomorrow night
Mhm.
for what will be another difficult game. Again, obviously, they're the reigning Eastern Conference champions. It'd be interesting to see sort of just how far these two teams have come since last season.
Yeah, I agree, and we'll touch upon this in a matter of minutes. We'll do the advertisements in a second, but you're right, Dave. I think if you told me a month ago they'll still be in first place, will not have lost a game in the regular season in MLS play rather. I would have been happy with that outcome. Now, the journey, as
Yeah.
Dave mentioned, may have not been how people wanted it, but it is what it is. We are here now. But before we get into too far ahead of ourselves, let's do the advertisements real quick. Let me get my old man glasses on because I can't see for shit, as you guys have already figured that out. Triple Threat Bets. You can find them at Triple Threat Bets, TRPLE Threat Bets on Twitter or triplethreatwages.com to cover college basketball all year long. Next up, we have Manscaped. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code AATBirds at manscaped.com. We have OddsJam, the number one software platform for sportsbook bandits. They use an arbitrage calculator and more, so you never lose a bet again. Sign up today at oddsjam.com via AAT Birds. Check out Statement Games Incorporated at statementgames.com for a fun new way to fantasy sports and entertainment. Win gift cards and prizes. It's free to sign up at statementgames.com. Our newest sponsor, our yummiest sponsor, Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant in Allentown, Pennsylvania. They are serving up Italian cuisine, including pizza, pasta, burger, sandwiches, and more, available for pickup or delivery, whichever you want. Order today at vinnyspizzapa.com. And of course, last but not least, we have our Across the Pitch gear and AAT Sports Network gear at aatsportsnetwork.com/shop. You get a bunch of gear. I'll show you one right now on the screen if you're watching this live. If you're listening to it tomorrow, I apologize you can't see it, but it's a pretty cool looking shirt. Dupe, there it is. Johnny Lecca made that himself. So really cool stuff there. Check it out, please, below. But before we get into the soccer stuff and we move on with what we like to talk about every single week, there was obviously some significant political issues, which I know we're not trying to get too crazy, but we do want to kind of take 30 seconds each to just talk about the shootings that have happened recently. If we've both been very involved with it online, talking about. So, Dave, I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll deal with myself on the clock as well. They kind of just get it out of the open. Okay? I feel like sports are great, but we also are human beings, and I think we should
Yeah.
take 30 seconds each to kind of just express ourselves where we have a platform to talk about the whole situation. So, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I think also the last 2, 3 weeks have been horrifying. I think, again, as a British person, I don't want to sound horrible. I feel privileged at the fact that I don't have to worry about the sort of situations that has occurred over the last couple of weeks because of our strict gun laws and you're not actually allowed to carry a gun in the UK. And again, obviously, we're not going to dive too deep into that. But again, the last 3 weeks have been horrifying, and to see people losing their lives when they shouldn't have had to. Kids going to school school, that's a safe place. Kids go
Yep.
to school, it's a safe place. They should be there, they should be learning, they should be having a fun environment, connecting with teachers, learning, growing. But instead, no, they've got to go there and they've got to do fucking bullshit like, you know, um, make sure you don't die. Here's the fucking scrap all the teaching today. We're going to do gun safety courses and what happens if there's a school shooting. That shouldn't fucking happen. They're fucking 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids. Honestly, again, it's utter fucking bollocks. And the people that sit there and obviously prioritize. I mean, again, we don't want to get too deep into it, but fucking guns have better rights than fucking children and people that are alive in America, and it's disgusting. I mean, again, if this
Yeah.
offends anyone, I don't care because at the end of the day, the harmless people innocent people are losing their lives, and it's just sickening to see. And hopefully, this is the cause that does, wake people up that have either been
Yep.
sleeping upon it or just openly blindly ignored it, like dickheads like Ted Cruz, Greg Abbott, people like that. Fucking people need to wake up, and I'm just sick and tired of seeing, waking up or looking on my social media and seeing these stories play out every single week, 3 times a week. It's horrifying, it's disgusting, and hopefully, something does change because it needs to change. And I'm not sending out thoughts and prayers because they do fuck all, and people that constantly do it, it means fuck all. It doesn't change anything. What will change stuff is direct action, direct change. Thoughts and prayers mean fuck all. Yes, they will be my thoughts, and I'm not obviously the 19 kids and I believe three teachers that horrifyingly lost their lives. They'll obviously be in everyone's hearts, and the families as well, and their close ones and loved ones. But I mean, these past 3 weeks were unacceptable, and again, it's just it's an unwelcoming eye opener of what the dark side of America really is like.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, obviously Dave's from England. So when we talk, it's interesting hearing a perspective from somebody from the outside. I guess for us, unfortunately, we're used to this. But yeah, I think Dave, you nailed all the things. The only thing I will say is I walk my daughter to school every single morning. I drop her off. And it doesn't matter how hard of a day it is every morning. Well, I mean, sometimes, as you guys know, 6-year-old, hard to wake up sometimes or get ready for school. But they'll tell you what, there's about 100-yard walk from my car to the front door, and I make sure that walk I watch her every single step of the way. When she turns around the wave, I know I'm waving at her back. So, whatever you feel about this, obviously we're gonna end this here. But just hug your kids, hug your family, and life's too fucking short. It really is. It's unfortunate. But moving on to the union side of things, we are a sports show. It's one of those things we have to kind of get back into the try to have an escape here. So, of course, Dave, we have the Philadelphia Union
Yep.
currently in first place. You were covering the press conference this past week. What were your thoughts on what Jim had to say, and just everything else that you kind of gathered from his presser?
I mean, again, it was all the start of it, at least anyway, was very much Brenden Aaronson heavy because again, the transfer that we'll move on in is was obviously such a big moment for the Union. I believe it's
Yeah,
not the first, the second homegrown player to be transferred to a Premier League team after Aaron
that's
Trusty.
true.
But obviously, Brendan Aaronson is going to be the first player that's actually going to be playing in the Premier League because no disrespect to Aaron Trusty. I don't really see him breaking into the Arsenal team anytime soon. But again, for
Yep.
Aaronson, it's been quite the meteoric rise of him. Within the last, especially 3 years. Going on winning that supporter shield, being an instrumental part on that team, breaking into the USA team, getting into the Red Bull Salzburg team, and now he's playing in the Premier League with Leeds is obviously a fantastic, not just a fantastic sort of thing for the Union, especially with the amount of money they're going to be making from the deal. I think they got 30% of the salary fee, which is the sale, which is really good to see. But
Yeah.
again, it's a fantastic advert for the Union Academy and the academies and of the MLS, and it shows that yes, they can develop players that can go on to they can go on and further the career at the better levels.
Yeah. No, it's so I mean, from what you and I have talked about over the past 2 years, you know that I follow a ton of sports in America. I don't really follow international football. I don't follow EPL. And for myself, I'm thinking Brenden Aaronson, a kid that I've watched grow up and play, is now playing on the biggest stage. I'm going to watch these games now to see how he does. So for people who are maybe new to soccer, maybe new to the union, this opens a door to expand that sport across this area, this country. I mean, because I mean, he can't go any higher than this. Besides, obviously, the U.S.
No,
national team. I mean, this is the peak of where he can get to as a player. That's where most kids grow up. They want to play with Chelsea, or or Leeds, or Liverpool, whoever you want to go to. So, in terms of just the franchise's growth and the sport as a whole in America, now you have a kid from Jersey, another American in the EPL. It's That's amazing. It speaks volumes. It has
yeah,
people what can't anticipate in their games next season. So it's a lot of fun. I know now I'll probably watch more games from the English Premier League than I ever have in my entire life because of Brenden Aaronson, and
yeah.
that is not just impactful for the union, but impactful for the impact of soccer in this country as a whole.
No, so I think again it's going to be a great influence again, as you said, to people like yourself. You're going to be more inclined to, um, actually tune into these games every time they kick off in the morning, especially Leeds games. I think you'll be seeing a lot of Leeds games or an increase of these games being viewed from the local Philadelphia and sort of Pennsylvania area next season, especially depending on how Brandon starts. It'll be interesting to see how he does adjust to life in the Premier League, a much more physical league. Um, Again, it'd be interesting to see how he does how he does in his debut season.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's also just for the academy. I mean, God, man, like, I mean, yes, we've been able to get players like DeVries and Fontana out there, and of course, Mark McKenzie, and we've talked about Trusty, and whoever else you want to talk about. When there's been talks of Kai Wagner, and obviously the union can develop young players, but this is
Yeah,
their poster child. This is the one who says, "Listen, look what we produce." And just think about it, Dave. Only 4 years ago, he's playing for Bethlehem. I mean,
yeah.
to imagine where he's jumped to in such a short period of time. I mean, again, you know the history of overseas soccer, international football better than I do. Can you recall a player who just kind of jumped onto the scene this quickly within the last couple of years? And anyone that maybe rings a bell that has had this almost immediate impact like Brendan has?
Is this from the sort of US point of view, or just the game in general, or?
I guess in the game in general, or even I guess in American, if you can think of something, anyone stand out? I have a couple
Uh,
comments to see if I can pick something up here.
I think
Yep.
perhaps someone like Weston McKennie, maybe sort of from a US perspective, a guy that um, um, you know, um, what's going to say? I was in the
Thanks for the
Weston
kind words. I
McKennie,
appreciate
obviously
it. Yeah,
the
for
job
sure.
he's done at Juventus, obviously going on. I don't think who else he played for at Schalke as well. I know he's made that sort of move. Now he's become an integral part of the um, Juventus team. And then
Hmm.
obviously, I think Erling Haaland's probably the one guy that from a global perspective, just 3 years ago, he was sort of a relatively unknown player at Salzburg, had an incredible Champions League group stage, um, earned a move to Dortmund, where he's completely dominated there. Now he's moving on to Man City. Well, obviously, he is hopefully the pawn that allows him to move up from the what's it called? From coming so close to winning the Champions League to actually getting there and winning the entire thing. So I mean,
Hmm.
Haaland's probably the biggest example of that. But again, Brandon's done an incredible job, to
Yeah.
go from an academy set up to the top of the global game. Really, the Premier League is the top of the global game. The money, the players, the all the players are being moved over to the league. As I said, Erling Haaland. You've even got mid-table clubs signing the top players from the top leagues, or the other top
Yep.
leagues and the top clubs in the other leagues. So again, it's obviously that's the height of football at the moment. It's great to see.
Yeah, I know. It's. I'm trying to just compare it to like American sports. Like I follow basketball a lot. It's like when LeBron James hit the scene. You weren't sure how he was going to do. You see a bunch of high school phenoms and young
Yeah,
phenoms come in, and then he takes the league by storm. When Brendan first signed with the Red Bulls, you weren't sure was he ready for it. I mean, there were some
no,
issues with not issues, I guess concerns. Was he strong enough? Was he able to do it from going from the Union to Salzburg? And it seemed like it was just easy for him at times to excel at that level. So am I nervous for him? Of course I am. I don't want him to be a bust. I want him to go out and make a name for himself and be the next,
yeah,
legendary player that comes from this area. But, uh, you know, he has proven everybody wrong. All his doubters have been proven wrong up to now. And I'm really excited for him. He's a great kid. I hope,
yeah.
Paxton can also follow in his footsteps as well. But besides the Brendan Aaronson news, which of course is exciting, uh, anything else that Jim has touched upon in the presser that you covered this past week or
Um,
regarding whether Portland or New England coming up?
I think obviously it's good news in regards to the injury front. Obviously, Sergio Santos, who was to come off in the game. Jim says that obviously he's had some injections in his knee,
Yep.
so it means that he will be able to play on. He will at least play a part. Obviously, Jordan Kwan did after the as Jim put it during the game. If the officials could actually manage the game, he probably would be playing in this game. But obviously, he's going to miss out due to his 5 yellow cards. So just had an injection. The intention was for him to train today. Whether he did or not, we'll have to see. But he should be
Right.
available. And Mikel has trained over the last few days, and he could be involved in the game and from a limited standpoint, whether it's off the bench,
Yeah.
if he plays the first half or something, that'd be interesting to see. Um, again, I think another interesting point, speaking of the Aaronsons and that sort of family that's churning up footballers at the moment. Paxton Aaronson played against Portland after, again, Sergio had to come off injured. Played up front, which obviously Jim acknowledged, said it wasn't his natural position, but he was happy with how he put himself about, held up the ball, and manoeuvred the ball around, which is obviously great to see. And I think that's really about it. Again, I think again, obviously Jim did, as he always does, highlights that Sundays that each game's a tough game. Portland game's a tough game. He's glad to see them get the points, and now he's again delighted to have players coming back, and he's also looking forward to another tough test against New England too. They haven't had the best of starts to the MLS season. I think that's fair to say.
No.
They're slowly but surely chipping away at the gap that they sort of left themselves in the early stages, and now it's interesting to see how they, how they will bounce back. Because again, last year they've had the Union's number over the last few games. Don't think anyone can kid themselves about that.
No, yeah, New England is an interesting team right now because they were untouchable last season. What felt like they were just this above
Yeah,
everybody else team. Of course, they almost had that supporter shield curse that we had the year prior when they took us out. It was almost like passing the torch. Now it's your turn to kind of get screwed over in the playoffs. So I worry that New England is one of those sneaky teams that could pull out an upset win. Well, I don't know about an upset win, but I guess just a 1-0 win. We've just it's been a tough rivalry with that squad, if you want to call it a rivalry. You've had some 1-1
yeah,
games. You've had a couple. Just we had that run where we beat them 6 times in a row, and they knock us out in the playoffs. So there's some
yeah.
bad blood between the Revolution, which again we'll talk about in a couple minutes. But going back to Portland, which we want to review. For one, you enter that match almost feeling like it was a must win, right? So for those who
Yeah,
didn't watch the game on Wednesday, the Union hosted Miami at in Chester. You're thinking, oh, it's one of the worst teams in the league. The Union should be fine. The Union put out this makeshift lineup. You had Jack Elliott, Stewart, and Glessens out there. Um, End up pulling out a draw. And the
yeah,
buildup was great on a lot of those opportunities. They couldn't get in the back of the net. And this felt very much the Union of old. You had to kind of win. You didn't win against the Red Bulls, even though you should have. You didn't win. You should have beaten
no,
Miami. You didn't win. And now you're going to Portland, a team who, although is not necessarily blowing the league by storm, they're right in the middle of the pack or so, probably towards the bottom, lower bottom of the Western Conference. You're still going there expecting to lose. As a fan right now, you're like, they're not playing well. They go there, they pull out this 2-0
no.
victory. How important was this win just from the fact of how this past month has been leading up to this point?
I think again we've certainly seen the top of the MLS table, well, the Eastern Conference table, really sort of tighten up the last couple of weeks. I mean, again,
Hmm.
that win for the Union has sort of given them a gap ahead of like Montreal and the Red Bulls,
Yep.
Cincinnati. Because if they hadn't won this weekend, they'd have been a couple of points off them both still, and the gap would have been much tighter. And
Hmm.
New York City having a game in hand, um, it really would have put them in a great position to sort of put themselves above everyone else. Now, in the early parts of the season, it looks like the Union and the NYCFC will be the two teams that are sort of going to be fighting at the top of the Eastern Conference for that first seed. Throughout the duration of the season, we'll find out. I think it was a massive win for the Union because again, I think Jim obviously alluded to it as well. Like they weren't happy with the way that the last month has panned out. Well, the month of May has panned out really, or at least from the Toronto game through to before Portland, they weren't happy with how things had panned out. They haven't won a game in pretty much a month, which is never
Yeah.
ideal. They've somehow stayed top, which is somewhat a miracle, really. considering there was the amount of drop points they've had. But again, it shows the resiliency of the team and the strong mentality they have to not bury their head in the sand for too long and carry on fighting and battling away.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on something that we talked about last year a lot. And I think you'll remember me saying this a couple times too. The Union always seem to play best when they have their backs against the walls or when they really need to kind of pull out a win. They always seem to kind of step up. We saw it after the Club America semifinal. We got kicked out. We saw it earlier in the season. There would be times in the year when we had to kind of get back on track, and the Union always kind of
Yeah,
rose to the occasion. You saw in the Atlanta match in the CCL. Bad first half. They just brought it together and had a great second half. You always kind of saw that mentality. I felt
yeah,
like we were going to see that against Miami, and then we just dug ourselves deeper in the hole. And then we had this
yeah,
performance that was by far our most complete performance. So the Portland Timbers did not have a shot on goal until like the 86th minute. That's unbelievable.
no,
Like I know we had the goal overturned, and we'll get to that in a second. But to have that mentality, to
yeah,
go into Portland, pull out road points, is phenomenal. So that's the one thing that I really was like, wow, okay, this team still
yeah,
has that fight to them. They still have that grit to them. Um, I think one of the most frustrating things for me personally watching that game was the field. The field was awful. I was worried about people's health. We saw Sergio Santos go down much earlier than needed. I know Kai Wagner got beat up a little bit too. I know he was holding the side a bit.
yeah.
That turf for both squads was pretty unforgiving, and I was most worried about just
Nah,
injury, like get back because, and I think that might be one reason why Mikael Ua didn't play. If Mikael's not 100%, he goes on that turf, he's probably gonna hurt himself. So
no, yeah,
I'm kind of glad he held off. But from a performance standpoint, I thought that was by far the best performance of the year, in maybe top two. Do
yeah.
you agree with that so far this season?
I think so in terms of from the consistency of the performance from minute 1 to minute 90. I agree. It was probably the best performance of the season, one of or at least the top performance of the season. Again, as you said, they really controlled things from up to the 70th minute. I think the disallowed goal sort of give Portland the wake up call they needed. Again, we'll move on to that in a second. But I think again
Yeah.
they were resolute defensively. They really limited Portland to the chances they had in terms of what they created. Looking at the stats here, again, only 2 shots on target throughout the entire game. Yes, the Union had less possession, but again, it was more of a game what you did with the possession. And I think
Right.
the stats were a lot more even in the first half. Where the Union were on top, they had the better chances, they created more chances. And then again, when they scored really in the second half, sort of the incentive, the mindset was okay. We can just sit back and watch what they try and throw at us. And
Hmm.
again, it was a goal which I thought was very, very lucky to be given as offside. Um, it
Yep.
was very. I think again, it was one of those ones. If it clearly wasn't obvious, it wasn't clear, it wasn't obvious that it was offside or there was a clear touch. So again, it was sort of one of those ones where on another day it's not given. But again, I guess again it's you go through spells of luck, and the Union perhaps haven't had that referee luck over the last couple of weeks with the red cards that weren't given and things such as that. So they were due a break, they got the break, and they ended up holding out. And again, it was a really solid performance. I think that first half, especially, was arguably the best half of the Unit played all year in terms of creating
Yeah.
chances, causing opposition issues, and again, it was great to see.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that I noticed the most, I thought this was, so we've heard about it all year. We finally saw it kind of come to fruition this past weekend at Portland. So, and credit to the staff, credit to the office, because I feel like they see certain problems or certain things that can be improved, and they immediately kind of try to address it. So we saw a couple years ago, Andre Blake had a down season, if you want to call it a down season. He wasn't the same Andre
Yeah,
Blake we have right now. They brought in, I can't remember his name. It's been so long since I've seen. They brought in like a specialized keeper coach. He goes out and has like an MVP style season next year, and he's been better ever since. Over the offseason,
yeah,
they say they're going to focus in on throw-ins. The throw-ins are going to be the most important thing we're going to focus on. Improve the throw-ins. We saw the Union control Portland on the throw-ins. Specifically, Nathan Harriel, who's got a great arm, like a set of arms, whatever you want to call it. He's got a good, throw-in. He gets the first goal started with that throw-in. He finds Bedoya. Bedoya flicks it back, nice
yeah,
flick behind him, and then Gazdag does the rest with a little mini bicycle. But you saw
yeah,
all the work they've been putting in over the offseason come to fruition in a game you needed the most. So a lot of credit to this staff for finally finding ways to improve the squad, not just being like, "Oh, it's a throw and don't worry about it." They're trying to take advantage, and I thought they did it multiple times. We saw against Portland multiple times where they were a bit on their back foot
Yeah.
trying to defend the Union off thrown. So it was amazing work there. But um,
I was going to say, the
yeah,
throws in
go
the
ahead.
first half is what really made is what really where the Union sort of dominated.
Yep.
Portland didn't have an answer to those throws on the outside every single time. Bedoya or Sergio Santos or Carranza was in there winning the flick-ons, and again it was the early throw, and that was the what was the cause of the first goal. Really, I mean, again
Yep.
looking at that first goal, I mean, a long throw in, as you said, Bedoya does well to flick it on. The ball sort of going away from Gazdag a bit, and he just really just sort of adjust himself to make sure he can stick out his leg enough to, hook it over him and score the overhead kick, which left their keeper sort of rooted to a spot because he probably wasn't expecting it coming. I thought it was a goal, and that was the sort of creativity and confidence that Gazdag has shown and deserves to have, deserve right to show over the start of his season.
Yeah, I mean, Gazdag, I think across the board, people are saying, he's MVP caliber player right now. He's contributing on both sides, both, in the assist column as well as the goal column. But um, I think one of the most important things that I noticed personally, and that's from the first goal as well as the second goal, where Kai Wagner does, just another amazing cross into the box with his left foot, his amazing left foot, finds Sergio. But neither of these goals were necessarily like earth shattering power. They were just more so placement. And I thought against
Yeah,
Miami, they had plenty of chances to like just fire these rockets into the net. We saw Jacob have that, to try to get the rocket kick off, the free kick and hits the post. But I thought something they struggle with the Union is the placement of their shots. They try to just they blow it through the keeper, or just they're kind of out of control. The fact that they had such control on those shots, where it was this bicycle kick to the corner, the keeper had no chance. Sergio,
yeah,
although it wasn't a powerful header, puts in the right spot. So it was nice to see them just be more control with their shots, which, as you can see, makes a difference. If you're able to just have more of that control, you get these goals. Because sometimes I feel like they're not hitting in the right spot, or they're just hitting right at the keeper. I'm like, how, like just hit the hit the net, please.
yeah,
So I feel like they were just a different team. It felt like a different Union squad out there.
yeah. Absolutely, I think again, they were trying to be more ruthless, and again, they were obviously the straight at the start of the second half. They needed that second goal to really sort of give them that bridge over the Timbers, and again, they came straight out of the blocks firing, and Kai whips in an incredible pinpoint right on the head of Sergio Santos, and he does a great job to get enough power to head it across the goal and into the back of the net, which is a great thing to see.
Yeah, first goal of the season too, which we've seen
Yeah,
Sergio now have a couple nice assists, but to have him break through finally, all the strikers have scored except for him.
yeah,
So to have him go there, and what has been most frustrating is the fact that Corey Burke and Sergio have played much more than most of the fans would have probably liked in the starting role. I think the best starting duo is Carranza and Mika Ua. We've seen that maybe two times this year, and now next week
yeah,
or this weekend, Carranza's out. So to have Sergio
yeah,
hopefully gain some confidence, but then you think, well, how healthy is he this week? How is his leg doing? So you really now have Mika Ua, who may not even play. You have Carranza, who's out,
yeah,
and you have Sergio with 80% health, 90% health.
yeah,
I mean, Corey Burke, for as much as people want to argue how poor he's been offensively, he played very well defensively in Portland. He was actually one of the best players on the field for the last 10 minutes for the Union. Corey Burke has
yeah,
been healthy through all this run, this mayhem, this struggle. Um, we saw with Casper last year. Casper was the healthy one, though he was not the best one. He was the healthy one, and it's just beyond frustrating right now that none of these strikers can seem to be together at the same exact time.
no, yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts on these like this turntable of strikers right now?
I think again, it's an annoying one to see. I think it's actually we had this preferred idea of what the strike partnership was going to be at the start of the season, and what we've seen
Yeah,
maybe for two games. And again, the weirdest thing is probably the most consistent strike partnership this season has been Santos and Burke on the pitch at the same time, whether it be off the bench or starting. That's probably been the
yeah,
most consistent partnership. One point of concern, I think, again, is the discipline of Carranza. It's Second time this season he's now been suspended, which is not ideal. Which you don't really want to have, especially when at this moment in time you are thin on strikers. Was it a harsh yellow card? Yes,
Yeah.
but again, some of the yellow card he has picked up this season have been silly. Again, they need obviously he's still a young player, so it might be something he needs to work out of his game, but he needs to improve on that side of his game in terms of the discipline of knowing when just improving that discipline a bit. Knowing when to stick a leg in and commit a foul when it's not necessary and things such as that. I think that's sort of the one thing you really need to stamp out of his game.
We saw that in LAFC too. You're absolutely right. So if you guys remember the LAFC match, I mean, really,
Yeah,
just he played great, right? He's one of the best players on the field. He obviously had the goal. He had the run that led to the Gazdag goal, but he was also playing very chippy, and he did get, I believe, a yellow card for that. And listen, we knew going into it when we brought him in here, he was that kind of player. He was gritty. He was going to just get in your face. He wasn't afraid, which is great. It kind of reminds you of Brujo, but at the same time, as we see with
yeah,
Jose, is the fact that he gets in trouble. And I don't know. You don't want to take you don't want to take the fire out of him, but the
no, yeah,
referee says, "Hey man, hurry up." You turn around, give him like I guess a look, and turn back around. The referee comes and gives a yellow card. You have to remember that. Yes, do you want to have an attitude out there? Sure, but you have to eventually play smart. So was it a soft
yeah,
yellow? 100%. I hated it. I thought we've seen much harder issues not get a card. But for the love of
no,
God, just remember where you're at right now. I'm on a yellow count. I cannot do something stupid to get me suspended. And now he's missing a game that we really need a second striker, which now he goes to Paxton. Is he going to get more time? Is Quinn
yeah.
Sullivan finally going to get more time? It's I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Let's say they're not entirely healthy with Santos. Do you think it's going to be Quinn or Paxton this weekend?
Um, Maybe Paxton. I think again, Jim may have been sounded encouraged with the way that Paxton performed in
Hmm.
in Port. Again, that might be the option from the start. Have the big man, little man combo, and just have Paxton
Yep.
sort of acting as like a how to explain it, sort of like the little guy in between, trying to cause havoc and trying to take advantage of the little gaps
Hmm.
in defence, which hopefully he can do. I think it's going to be an interesting way to see how the Union line up. Do they go with everyone's beloved Christmas tree formation, which everyone loves so much? And uh, but yeah, I think obviously this is ironic. Now, this would be the perfect time where if you had a winger,
Hmm.
you could play like a full 2-3-1 or something along those lines, and you could get away with playing one striker because you'd have the
Yeah.
width and the depth, to put the ball in the box and you know space the game out more. But of course they don't. They're going to play narrow time in the game, which again forces the game to be played in the middle of the park, which is where you do need two strikers, unfortunately, especially when you're going to be playing against a solid team like the Revs, who have picked up, they've gone on a good run of form recently. I think looking at their recent form, ignoring obviously the Open Cup, they went to Cincinnati and won at the weekend, an informed Cincinnati team. They drew
Yep.
against the Atlanta United. They drew against Columbus, and they've beaten Inter Miami. So again, they're picking up results. It, and again, look at the way they do play as well. They're obviously a team that believe it's sort of they're quite adaptable. They can play a three at the back or four at the back. So it'll be interesting to see how they do attack the game on the weekend as well. But I'm sure Jim will be prepared for it.
Yeah, I mean, what you need to see on the weekend is the defense we saw against Portland. The back four,
Yeah,
Nathan Harrell in particular, was phenomenal, and Nathan Harrell alone. I mean, he you forget he's only 20 years old. I mean, he is just above and beyond what any one of us expected. I mean,
yeah,
we all were very high on Olivier. I think if I remember correctly, Dave, I think I said before the year started that Olivier was going to be the most improved player on the field. I thought he was going to take that next step. Obviously, that didn't happen. I don't think anybody could have thought that
no,
Nathan Harriel would be the most improved player. Would he have done
no,
well? Sure. I think we were all confident in him. But my God, this kid is amazing. And he's only so
yeah,
young. But I thought from a defensive standpoint, I thought the unsung hero, and I thought he was very important on Saturday against, was it Saturday or Sunday? I don't even remember at this point. Whatever. I lose track of my days, people. I'm,
Sunday.
I'm very busy. Sunday. Okay. I thought the unsung hero at Portland was Leon Flock. I thought he was
Yeah,
phenomenal defensively. I thought he had some key moments, key stops, key turnarounds to get the counter started. and that's the thing with Leon, right? We rag on him for his offensive woes, and he is very limited offensively, but what he does defensively is phenomenal. And I thought he was everywhere
Yeah,
on Sunday night. And him and Brujo, I thought Brujo played well. I thought he kind of was up for the challenge to play against Chara, to have that, like, they even had that race in the beginning
yeah,
to the ball early on the year, or early in the match. So I thought Brujo stepped up, played a solid game. I thought Leon played
yeah.
well, but the back line is really important because you do not have a strong offensive output this coming weekend.
No,
No.
no, great. I think the interesting thing now, especially going into sort of like, well, we look at that the way that why Leon Flack's so important, the right reason why he is so important, and why having a defensive sort of minded player out on the left hand side is so key is because Kai Wagner essentially plays as a wide sort of midfield sort of player. He always pushes on, he always gets into attacking positions. We saw a couple of times where Kai was up the pitch and sort of Leon had to cover at left back. And I'm interested to see
Yeah.
how Jim approaches that when Kai leaves in the summer, because I think, again, we don't. There's no point sort of sugarcoating it. This could potentially be his last game for the Union.
Yeah.
With their next game coming on the 19th of June, or this could be one of his final couple of games. And we've discussed the way in which that left hand side with Leon is not the best attacking player. And again, I've listened to some of Jim's press conferences. He seems to have high hopes for Matt Real. I mean, interesting after the way he was sort of frozen out last year, but Matt Real seemingly appears to be the backup plan, or the plan going forward when Kai does go. Be interesting to see how it turns out, because again, we haven't really seen how good Matt Real can be in an attacking position, or when he has
No
been in
idea.
the game, he's never really been as effective as Kai has it from the left back position. And again, if you've got
Hmm.
two more defensive minded players, or two players who aren't that great down the left hand side going, then you sort of have that problem of a lack of creativity, which we saw at large parts last year when the team really couldn't get the ball forward. And then you go back to that point again of, okay, well, we've got two defensive minds here. It sort of, it makes things more obvious where the Union are going to be going, which will be the right hand side through Bedoya, Hario, Gazdag, moving like Martinez being right footed, moving over. Do you know what I mean? I think that might be something we see changed when Kai does eventually leave. And I think it's going to be a really important transfer window for the Union. We'll obviously discuss that in a later podcast, but I think why. But I think, yeah, this this upcoming transfer window could be a huge one in terms of where they move going forward.
Great points. And I think that the most important thing is where Leon Flock goes come Kai Wagner's departure, which is evident at this point. He's going to leave at some point. Well, maybe not, but maybe
Yeah,
the Union will get lucky. But all signs are pointing to that's the case. So let's say, why is Kai Wagner so important to this team? Right. For one, he has an incredible left foot. He's obviously strong defensively, but he's a very
yeah,
offensive-minded attacking player. He's a two-way player and a good one at that. So he's gone from the pick. Well, let's say he's up high on the pitch. He's trying to attack. What Leon Flock does so well is he covers for Kai brilliantly, right? And he's fast enough
yeah,
to do that on a regular basis. He has a motor like hell. If you put Leon in the left back position where Kai is, right? Let's say Kai's gone.
yeah,
He's not a threat offensively. And if he goes up that high, who is that left midfield spot? So now you think, okay, have a Jack McGlynn. Love Jack on the offensive standpoint, but the problem is he's just not fast enough. He cannot cover the ground that
yeah,
Leon can cover. So that's where Matt, again, I think that's exactly where, to your point, I think Matt Royale is the most sensical transition because have, you cannot limit yourself as you put a few seconds ago. You cannot make it where the Union are so predictable because that's what would happen, in my opinion, at least. It would become too predictable where they're going to go to the right.
yeah,
You have to have your left back as dangerous as your right back, which is what the Union
yeah.
currently have. Is Matt Real that? I don't know. Would they ever change the defensive back line? Probably not. So it's probably gonna be four in the back as we have it been for years now. I think Matt Real is that next man up, and that's the thing. We none of us know what he can do. He doesn't really. I don't think he plays for the second squad ever. If he does, somebody correct me
No,
because I don't remember seeing him. He doesn't play for the second squad. It's very
no,
much like
yeah.
Nathan Harriel. What the hell are we going to get from Matt Real? We haven't seen him in what seems like 2 years. So
I think again, obviously the only
yeah,
two sort of memorable things we've seen from Matt Real is obviously again the Cope and Cup game this year, and the the only two times I can really remember him again is the Open Cup game this year and the mini cameo in the league last year
Yeah,
where he was sent off after like 30 seconds and was luckily brought back in because of VAR.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's again he's not really played, and again it's a bit different to someone like Nathan, who who was consistently in the Union Two team and playing, week in and week out, and coming into this team, being sort of an understudy to players like Ray Gaddis, Alvis Powell, even
Mhm.
Olivier Bozo, he's coming in, he's now playing consistently. And like Matt Real, who was sort of in and out of the team the last couple of years, up until last year, got frozen out for no real apparent reason, and he's barely played this year as well. So again, he's a lot older than Nathan. He's barely played the last couple of years. So again, it's going to be interesting to see how that adjustment really, how things really adjust.
Yeah, it's amazing how important Kai Wagner really is, and at the same time, how important Jose Martinez is because it allows Leon to be on the left side where Kai is because Jose can play the six.
Yeah,
Uh, if you lose both of them, then you really have an issue because now Leon has to be the six, unless you bring Jack Elliott to the six and have Stewart be the center back. Which I mean,
yeah,
I'm not really entirely for. I feel like Jack is decent at the six, but not exactly anywhere near as good
yeah,
as Martinez can be. Or Leon is very much like the old school, six in my opinion. So it's obviously we're just kind of predicting something that may not even happen. I get it, but it's something that could happen, and I think it's a legitimate concern. But with New England coming up, Dave, and that's a match we have that we know is going to happen, right? Is this weekend's New England
yeah.
match? Uh, what do you think is a reasonable outcome, or do you expect to be the outcome for
I
this weekend?
think they need to aim for the win. I think again it's going to be really big, really important if they can go into this 3-week break off the back of a massive win, because I think that's what they need. They need to rattle off a couple of wins to really sort of get the ball rolling again in terms of with the confidence and things like that. I mean, again they've got a tough couple of games when they come back from that break against Cincinnati and NYCFC, which again, looking at the face of it at the end of the season, it could be quite a crucial. Those two games could be quite crucial looking back, especially having the head to head over NYCFC if you can get a result in that game, and again beating Cincinnati and sort of not going to say burying a contender, but sort of continuing to build a gap away from the rest. And if you can win those two games off, or get 4 points in those games off the back of a big win there to build some momentum, build some confidence heading into the break, I think that'll be important. So I think a win is probably the result that we should be looking for and wanting. Whether it happens or not, again with this Union team, we'll have to wait and see, because what's it called? Uh, again, this sort of, so I've just trying to thought here, but
It's all right.
again, this sort of team, you think they look again. The Red Bull game is a perfect example. You think they're going to win, they look set to win. The red card
Yeah.
goes in, they're really battering the opposition, and then 10 seconds later they go and concede an easy goal, and then they just
Hmm.
fail to break them down for the rest of the game. You think, okay, fair enough, they should beat into Miami, and they don't score, they draw nil. You know what I mean? And Jim's going on about how they're due a breakout game where they're going to put 3, 4, 5 goals, score 3, 4, 5 goals,
Hmm.
and again, we're all still hanging on for that and clinging on to it. Hopefully, it happens this weekend. They can get a good 3-0 win, 3-1 win, have a comfortable victory, and take it on into the Cincinnati game where they can continue to build upon that momentum.
Yeah, the break the if you're a long-term Philadelphia Union fan, breaks are not our friend. We've had times where we started out hot. I remember one year we had we were I think first or second. We had the Copa break, and then we just went downhill. It was a
Yeah,
disaster ever since. We limped into the playoffs, I think, that year. Um, these breaks come in and they're so long. That's the problem. It's not just a week. They're off for like 3 weeks, which
yeah,
is a good thing because if other clubs are also dealing with the same problem, and at the same time, our roster is not exactly healthy right now, so it's good that we have that break. But
no, sorry.
you end this match on a bad note. You get blown out 2-0, or you blow another lead, whatever it might be. That sits in your mouth for so long, and that to me would be very frustrating if that's the case, because now you have to dwell on a Cincinnati team who frankly has been told all season long, all off season long, oh, you're just taking from the Union players. Oh, you're just Union 2.0. You guys are still going to suck. You guys are going to be just the worst in the league. And then they start getting to the form. Pat Noonan's done a good job out there. They're starting to climb
Yeah,
up the table. If they see the Union coming in here somewhat on the downswing, because besides the Portland match, they're going to be licking their chops to go to Chester and show up this team
no,
that
exactly.
they're supposedly supposed to be like the second version of. So listen, I thought at first June would be easy. I look at the schedule now with Chicago, NYCFC, and Cincinnati. I don't think it's going to be as easy as we think. You have to end
No,
this with at least a draw. If you get a road point, end it May undefeated in MLS play, and so be it. But for the love of God, if you can get a win out of this match, you have 6 points in the last two games on the road. That's massive, and that's something that I don't think will happen, but would be amazing.
no, exactly. I think again a win would be the best case scenario, and hopefully they do get the win because I mean I think they need to build upon that momentum again. If you
Exactly.
can, as I constantly say, winning road games is so difficult. But if the Union want to stay where they are in the league and compete to try and win the Supporter Shield and stay above NYCFC, by the way, I think it's been really very much on overlooked at how we discussed last year how um, the CCR really messed up with the Union at points last year. What an incredible job NYCFC have done. Stay at the top of the table when you compare them to Seattle Sounders, who are third last in the Western Conference, have a complete contrast with NYCFC near the top with a game in hand on other teams. Fair play to NYCFC, and I think they're going to again be a real threat. And again, going into that game, which will be huge, again, Union obviously hold a win over them, which again, on the face of it, looks a lot better now than it did perhaps at the time.
Sure.
Um, yeah, I think these next three games, we keep saying it, but these next three games again, and another three big games that trying to set the tone of what this Union season could be.
Yeah, and especially I know a lot of fans were upset with the Open Cup, and we didn't really talk about that too much. I mean, at this point, it's in the past. They made the decision to go for the MLS rather than the Open Cup, so be it.
Yeah,
But fans want a trophy this year, which I understand. We've been on the up and up for a while now. These next couple months are so crucial to be in that supporter shield conversation, to be in that
yeah,
first place conversation. So from an expectation standpoint, you basically said F the Open Cup, we're going full throttle for the MLS. Now you really have to deliver because if they continue this up and down form, from a viewpoint of the fans, it's just gonna be more restlessness. And with
yeah,
Mikael Ua not even playing really, it's just more frustrating. Like, when are they going to get it together? When can we see this the full potential of this roster? So I'm going to just start the conversation of the prediction for this weekend. I think they pull out a road draw. Not what people want to hear. I think that's what they do. I think it's probably 1-1 draw. So be it. Carry that some momentum and just get healthy. That's the most important thing.
yeah,
And for Cincinnati, it better be the full roster. It better be Mikael Ua starting alongside Carranza and the rest of the 11, and just and try to make June a successful month to finally build into July, August, and September, because that's when you make the
yeah.
push to get the shield, to get everything else. How about yourself? What is your gut telling you? Maybe a goal score and the final score.
Um, Funny enough, I think there will be one goal score. I think it'll probably end up in a one draw.
Yep.
We'll probably have to wait that a little bit longer for that breakout match. And again, I guess Jim could probably. I mean, on the basis of it, you going into this game, Union are 1, 2. The Union of 5 games unbeaten. Again, that looks on the face of it. That looks 5 games unbeaten. When you break it down, and there, 4 draws, 1 win. That's when you sort of look at it a bit iffy. Again, a win would be perfect. I think a draw would probably keep things ticking over nicely enough. To stop people getting too mad again. We look at the record against the Revs in the last 5 games, and Union have won one, lost three, and drawn one. So again, the record hasn't been too great after win like
No.
100 games on the bounce. So it's going to be a difficult game this weekend. I'm really looking forward to. Um, Again, obviously, I won't be watching it live. I'll be watching the highlights on Sunday before giving my thoughts. I'll be looking forward to seeing how this team does, and again, hopefully, they come out with a positive result and they can put out a good performance.
Yeah, I agree. And if Mikael Ua plays, here we go. We have it from Sean. who chimed in earlier with a nice comment. So thank you, Sean. 2-1 Union win, another solid performance.
I
Listen,
like that.
after that Portland match, Sean, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I was I was
Mate,
impressed. I was also very surprised. So you know what? I like the optimism. Let's be positive, as Jeff Mitchell always
I
says,
mean,
Posidelphia, right?
is that
Um,
I mean, look, their
Posidelphia.
recent trips, their recent trips to the West Coast. I mean,
Yeah,
they haven't been terrible. I mean, the recent away trips. I mean, looking at the trips to the West Coast, which are probably the harder trips in the MLS, which are more difficult to win. They got a great road result against LAFC, who are top of the East, the Western Conference. They
yeah,
beat the Timbers. They thrashed the Timbers last year. Do you know what I mean they've
yeah.
had a good? They've done well. They've done well. They've had to go against big road games. So again, hopefully they can treat us like it's no different. Again, the one loss this year or had come on the road against Toronto.
Toronto.
But yeah, hopefully they put off. I don't think they'll lose. I think the Union will definitely get a result on Saturday.
I agree with that. And yeah, if you look at the road matches, you went to Montreal, you could have been down 2-0. You come out and you pull out the win. You go to LA to Nashville, open their stadium with a draw, which was a nice kind of surprise for
Yeah,
us. LAFC, you go out there, you fight hard with LAFC, and then you obviously go to Portland. So you know what? Would 2-1 be foreseeable? I can see that happening. It will require Mikael Ua to be healthy and play at least 30 minutes. And if he does that, at least a half, I think that could happen. And also maybe Paxton carries over his good form. So unfortunately, the biggest thing with the Union is we don't really know their starting lineup every week. It's
no,
such a speculation because of how many injuries, these suspensions. So
I think yeah,
maybe an hour before the match, and you'll really get a good idea. Like, okay, this lineup can make
yeah.
it 2-1. So,
I, I was gonna say,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to chip in again. I think that's the annoying thing because like it would be different, if Jim like to hit the team every week or every couple of games, and everyone's fit. It's like okay, we're just gonna rest some legs here. But, this guy can do a good job as well. But it's like, well, Mikel's injured, so we're gonna have to play Corey. Last second, Mikel can't. Oh, Julian or Sergio's knee's gone again, or his hamstring's gone again, so he can't play. Last second, so we're gonna have to play this guy up front. I mean, that's gonna be the issue. I think it could be a similar issue again come tomorrow night, where, and I'm not gonna lie, I won't be shocked if we look at the team and it's Aronson and Burke up front, or Quinn Sullivan and Burke up front, and neither Santos or Ua are in the squad. That wouldn't shock me at all tomorrow.
I wouldn't shock me either. And that's the thing too, is you have to think long term. This
Yeah,
match against New England is not terribly important to the point where you
no,
want to risk Sergio Santos because at this point you have to be concerned with everybody's health in the forward department. So if Sergio Santos is not 100% and you're going to that turf, do you want to risk him? Maybe not. So he doesn't play. Mika Ua,
no,
same thing. Do you want to just hold him off to then? So you have one fresh starter. If that is Corey Burke, who's the true forward starter, you're going to the Christmas tree. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. So you're going
yeah,
to probably have Burke,
no,
Gazdag, Paxson, which I'm okay
yeah,
with. I don't mind. You don't know what you're going to get, and that's where the issue is. You don't know what you're going to get from that particular formation because it's just the chemistry's not there either.
no,
Um, well, I mean, I guess you can't say this chemistry with any of these formations because it keeps changing every damn week. But um,
yeah.
you'll find out before an hour, as they always do. They post usually 45 minutes before the lineup. But uh, before I send off on these AAT Sports Network thing that I was going to discuss earlier, and I forgot, goal scorer for this weekend.
Um, that's a tough one because I don't think you can really see a guy unless Sergio does start or Ua gets on the game. I can't really. I just don't know. It feels like the sort of game we want. But again, Gazdag's come up so big recently that you can't expect him to score every single week.
I'm
Again, I
doing.
think it
I'm
might
doing.
come from a set piece.
You know who I'm saying, Dave? It's time for
Yeah,
Jose Martinez to score a goal. I'm calling it here first. You heard it first. Jose Martinez is gonna
Jesus,
score
we're
off some
desperate.
25-yard. He's getting closer. Okay, the problem
Yeah,
with Jose Martinez last year he was like over the crossbar into the river. If you notice recently, he's been very close to scoring. He almost scored at Portland off a set piece. He had
the free kick.
actually
Yeah,
of the free kick. It just missed. I think Jose Martinez finally puts in the back of the net this week. I'm gonna place a bet on it
that'd be
later.
big.
I'm going to do it. I'm calling it now. Jose Martinez, I think, will be the first goal scorer. Hopefully, Ua or Gazdag or Paxton maybe gets a second goal. So we're all happy with the road
Yeah,
victory. But before we sign off, I know it was a good show tonight, Dave, and also kind of a long one, about an hour.
yeah,
I know I mentioned 2 weeks ago I was thinking about leaving AAT Sports. My work schedule is full time, is chaotic. After some discussion, talking to my buddy Dave, We've been able to do a little part-time role, so I'm staying with the network, staying with the union coverage. I love it. I can't stop. I'm addicted to the union. So appreciate you, Dave, helping me out these
No,
tough couple weeks. We got through it. My work schedule's starting to lighten up a little bit enough where I'm like, you know what? I'll stay on board. So the union coverage will continue.
uh,
There may be a few less episodes of Across the Pitch sometimes, maybe, if our schedules are too crazy. But for the most part, we're here and we're going to finish out the year strong, and then we'll worry about
hell yeah.
anything else over the off season. So I want to
Oh
clear that
yeah.
up for those who don't follow me on Twitter. So Dave, again, thank you for your help this past couple weeks.
Of course, man. Anytime, man. Anytime. And again, it's great to
Of
see
course,
sticking on board because I mean, hopefully, it's looking like it's going to be a really exciting season. And again, it wouldn't be the same, not discussing the union, reporting on the union without you. And I'm looking forward to
exactly. I
us
mean,
both,
amen. Yeah, no, I agree, man.
getting on with it.
I agree. So we have Saturday night. The Union go travel to New England Revolution. We'll see if they pull out a win there or a draw. Again, goal scorers, we'll talk about Jose Martinez as well as maybe off a set piece. We'll find that out. But until
Yeah,
then, we'll come back maybe next week. I know we have that long stretch of June where we don't have any games, so we'll probably do an award show, an early award kind of show. Maybe who's the MVP so far, like one of those things we did last year, a recap show.
yeah.
So maybe one or two shows with a break. Recharge your batteries to come out strong. But until then, Dave, follow us on AAT Sports Network. You see our Twitter handles, below us, Embraer1323, Dave,
No, yeah.
Dave GFC Miller. Both of us on Twitter. We're tweeting all the time.
Go.
Dave covers the press conferences. I try to cover the weekend matches or whatever. So follow us, follow AAT Sports Network, and happy Friday night, Dave.
All right. Go Union. Duke.
Doop, doop.